Good evening. It is time for today's tax talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. It is Thursday, December 1st, the year of our Lord 2022. And we all know that inflation is hitting us all hard. But as inflation goes up, so do the interest rates that people pay to the IRS if they owe their money. That's what we're going to talk about today. Won't you join us? So, as you may know, I help business owners who owe taxes, and a big component of that bill is usually interest. But and interest has been kind of a reasonable thing. I wouldn't say it's never an issue because even with the IRS, it's always an issue. We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's go to the first story, and then I have an IRS page I want to look at for some context. So let's read the first story. Here it is. IRS to hike interest rates for Q1 next year. They're talking about, right, for 2023. That's right. It's almost 2023. The Internal Revenue Service said this last Tuesday, that it plans to hike interest rates for the first quarter beginning January 1st. For individuals, the rate for overpayments and underpayments will be 7% per year, compounded. And this is what people don't understand about the IRS interest rates. Compounded daily, up from 6% for the quarter that began on October 1st. Other new rates announced, and then they have some others. 7% for overpayments. This is the big one, payments made in excess of the amount. No, the big one is the underpayments. 7% for underpayments. Taxes owed but not fully paid. 7%. Under the Internal Revenue Code, the rate of interest is determined on a quarterly basis. For taxpayers other than corporations, the overpayment and underpayment rate is the federal short-term rate plus 3 percentage points, the IRS explained. Generally, according to the IRS, for a corporation, the underpayment rate is the federal short-term rate plus 3 percentage points, and the overpayment rate is the federal short-term rate plus 2 percentage points. The rate for large corporate underpayments is the federal short-term rate plus 5 percentage points. The rate of the portion of a corporate overpayment of tax exceeding $10,000 for a taxable period is the federal short-term rate plus 1/2 of a percentage point. The interest rates announced Tuesday, the IRS said, are computed from the federal short-term rate determined during October 2022. And so I think that's interesting. Again, and the biggest part of that, besides the 7%, because it is kind of shocking, and we'll see why in just a moment. But it's this is what people don't understand. Again, compounded daily. So the interest that they added to my account yesterday is now on my balance today and is added to the interest that they're going to add today. So the interest that today is a little bit higher than the interest I paid yesterday, and tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today. So that's the way it works, right? So every year, every day, boom, 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 it goes up every day, and it does shock a lot of people. And so many of my clients will tell me, I don't mind paying what I owe, but can we get rid of the interest and the penalties? And the answer is you can't. They'll never get rid of all the interest because interest is by law. They have to charge interest by law. So they can't abate the interest. But if they abate some of the penalties, that'll get rid of some of the interest because you're paying interest on the penalties, right? So not only are you paying interest on the interest, but you're paying interest on the penalties. And that's where the numbers can really escalate fairly quickly. Same thing with, it's, again, this is what happens when you owe the IRS money. The penalties and interest really hit you hard. Now, again, many of my clients, one of the problems is they haven't filed for some time. And then if you have older tax returns, or maybe you have filed, but you owe for 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, right? That 8 years ago, over 8 years, a small amount of money, the interest compounded daily adds up fairly quickly. Again, now 8 years ago, we go through this, the interest rates weren't too bad. But again, they're going to 7%. So what is the, let's look at what it is now. So right today, this is on the IRS.gov website. And today, for 2022, the fourth quarter underpayment, corporate and non-corporate, is 6%. But look at this. 6% this quarter, 5% the last quarter, 4% the quarter before that, and 3% the quarter before that. So we can look at last year's. Let's do that. Let's look at 2021. And it was actually stuck at 3%. It didn't really go up at all for the whole year. Underpayment right there, 3%. How about 2020? What was it like then? 2020, it was at 3%, but it was there before COVID and right after COVID at 5%. I think the 3% was false, right? It was a real rate, but I think it was they just decreased interest rates. And of course, that's why real estate and everything went through the roof, because the interest rates came down. So in 2019, you see it's 5%, 6% at the beginning of 2019. 2018, 5%, 4%, 5%. 2017, that's all they have here, so we might as well look at it all. 4% for all of that year. So it's fluctuated, as you see, from 3%, but now up to 7%. It hasn't been 7% in all of these years that we just explored. It hasn't been anywhere near really 7%. And this year, again, it's just 1 percentage point every quarter. It's gone up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 now. Pretty amazing in my mind. It's crazy. And this so if now when you pay interest on to the IRS, and it changes every quarter and it's compounded daily. So if it started at 3%, they were doing at 3%, but now it's 7%. So now it goes up. Now even those older debts, it changes the interest rate. There was something here. There was a good story here. Interest, how we calculate interest rates. Interest will accrue on any unpaid tax, penalties, and interest, as I mentioned, until the balance is paid in full. The interest rates we charge and pay on overpayments and underpayments are compounded daily, as I said. This means the interest rate is assessed on the previous day's balance plus the interest. We use the federal short-term rate based on daily compounding interest to calculate the interest we charge and pay. Changes to the rate don't affect the interest rate charged for prior quarters of years. So again, if I've owed for the last 3 years, every quarter, right? I don't just owe 7% now on all of it. For every quarter, for the time, it goes up according to the interest rate, and so that's the way it works. Different interest rates apply to underpayments and overpayments, depending on whether you're an individual or a corporation. And so this is pretty much self-explanatory. But I just think it's interesting, and I don't think people really realize the impact that this might have. Now, one of the good things, if you can call it a good thing, the longer that I owe the IRS, the more money I owe the IRS, the more likely it is that I can't pay it all back. I always tell people there's a level at which I can't pay anymore. That's just all I have. And so even if I owe a lot more than that to the IRS, I won't be able to pay them. But I have to prove it, right? That level to the IRS, I have to prove I can't pay it. And that's what we do here at Open Tax Advocates, right? We help people pay what they can. And what really freezes people and paralyzes them when it comes to taxes and tax debt is they don't know this. And so I'll never be able to pay them. So instead of worrying about it, they just kind of throw up their hands and say, there's nothing I can do. But there is something you can do, and you should do it, right? Because you should get in. Here's the sad part. Usually people who owe taxes, back taxes, are business owners, right? And their business can never thrive if they have this tax problem, because the IRS is going to eat up all of their money and maybe put them out of business. And so when you find an avenue to make money, you should protect that avenue with everything, right? You should protect it. And that means getting involved with the IRS, coming up with a reasonable payment plan, if that's what it is, or maybe it goes to zero, because there are ways you could pay the IRS zero. And there's something, so just so you know, don't be too afraid. Don't let it paralyze you. Look into it. Find a solution. That's what we help people do. If you go to fightbacknow.com, you can sign up for one of our webinars, and I'll explain all this to you. So go to fightbacknow.com. So let me see what we have here. Remember, I'm going to always ask you to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. We need your help to get this information out. So we only ask you to like and subscribe. And remember, if you are facing IRS problems, if you don't know what to do, and again, many people, they don't know what to do. And that's, I worry about this sometimes. They don't know what to do, and it freezes them. And what's the first step you should take? First step you should take, get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com, freeirsbook.com, freeirsbook.com. Get your free copy. I will pay for the printing. We'll ask you to pay for the shipping and handling, a small shipping and handling fee. Otherwise, I will pay for the printing and all of the bonuses that come along with it. So go to freeirsbook.com and get your free copy. So thanks so much for joining us here today. Tomorrow, I don't know if I'll do a show tomorrow, but we're changing our format for our Friday show. So stick around with us, and we'll talk about that. Not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And we'll talk about it on the show next week. So thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Thanks so much again. God bless. We are out.